All right, well, we'll go ahead and jump in then. I'm happy to introduce myself and then introduce Brian Knapp, who will be joining us and leading this webinar. My name's Andy Johns. I am the VP of Marketing here at Pioneer, and we're excited to be rolling out a semi-new partnership. We started, I guess, end of last year working with Pulse Research to help our members and other folks around the broadband and utility space get to know their customers and membership a little better. Brian Knapp has extensive experience on projects when it comes to research, and so I'm excited to get into everything that he has shared today. Kind of the format of this one, we're going to do a little back and forth, but feel free to ask any questions that you have along the way. But Brian's going to unpack for us the anatomy of market research and kind of helping everybody get the reading the pulse of their customer base. So with that being said, Brian, take it away.
All right, well, thank you, Andy. Again, yeah, my name is Brian Knapp with Pulse Research, and we'll be going through the market research offerings that we provide, but just it's kind of a general guideline for any kind of research you do, sharing what we've learned, especially over the last year, and of course, our over 30 years of experience doing market research. So obviously, what the market research does is really power insights. The common questions, the common reasons that co-ops, have approached us. We've talked about research. Typically starts with communication needs. They want to make sure that the communication to the members are very effective. But of course, probably equally important is customer satisfaction solutions. Really, looking at where they can increase or where they need to focus their efforts on customer satisfaction. Areas you better serve your customers, now into the future. And then there's usually some questions, often around local decision making, where strategic decisions are important, and that kind of leads into, future planning. Any could be an office move, something along those lines. But primarily, the focus of the research is focusing on something that's usable, something that you can actually put in, make actionable.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
so I think the why is kind of the good place to start with that as you're bringing those up. You touched on it there, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and start with why. So let's talk a little bit more about why it is that folks are wanting to do market research.
Okay, well, we'll just get started here with customer satisfaction. I think that it really is kind of the heart of it. It's like lifeblood of any organization. So really knowing how satisfied your customers, your members are, really helps you identify areas where you can improve. Um, in providing your services. And we, like many firms, will measure satisfaction, through standard scale rankings. One of the examples, of many is on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 usually being dissatisfied, 10 being very satisfied. How do you, rate your overall service? And so there's a number of those, but that's provides benchmarks for comparison, both to your organization compared to others, but also now as a point in time, and then you can always do measures, of course, in the future, a year or 2 years along the lines. So one question to kind of consider when you're looking at a survey is how you feel your current customers would rate you now, and then really compare that to the results of the survey.
That brings up a good question, I think, there, Brian, when because a lot of the folks that we work with, a lot of the folks in the rural broadband and utility space, they do a pretty good job of knowing their membership base, knowing their customer base. How well have you found when you do surveys like this? How well have you found that do folks know their membership and their customer base as well as they think they do, or is there a little disconnect there sometimes?
They actually, I think that they know him fairly well. I don't think there's so far in what I've seen, there is not a significant disconnect. Um, It's usually very reassuring. That people are usually, really pleased to see that the sentiment that their members have of, the utility or the service. But I think what, this kind of leads into, perceptions or impressions. Um, and sometimes that can differ a little bit. You sometimes just on specific issues, and those are really the important ones to identify. Uh, Perceptions, reliability and responsiveness. Um, all providers are, doing a great job, doing, the best of their ability. But its perception can sometimes be differ, from the reality. So really, kind of trying to get a sense of those impressions are really critical, and that can, really help you understand how your customers view your service overall. Um, what you learn there can also, really provide, valuable insights, and you can get to a kind of a greater depth. And it obviously gives you the opportunity to address those perceptions through your communications. So a couple of examples on that. Again, on a scale of 1 to 10, does the co-op provide respond to outages promptly? Do problems get resolved quickly? And this could be one thing, sometimes you hear from one or two customers who are complaining, but that is not necessarily the perception of your members as a whole. So one thing to consider there is, when you're looking at questions to ask, what questions you want to include, how do you think that your customer perceptions might differ from your own experience and, of the reality of the services you provide. Okay. So we'll go back into a kind of identifying customers' needs, a little deeper into that, another question set. Um, this is really about, what customers think that their service needs are now and what they anticipate those needs to be into the future. The market research here helps you understand, not only your current consumption, the current needs, consumption patterns, et cetera, but also how those needs might evolve over the next year, 2 years, or more. An example of that, question that we offer is in the next 12 months, which of the following do you plan to buy for your residents? So this could be anything from solar panels, power generators, could be, Starlink system for communication, broadband, etc. So kind of knowing the direction where your customers are thinking, what they're feeling, where the future is going, really kind of helps you better plan. So kind of a question to ask yourself as you're putting together a survey, considering a survey is, how do you think, what new customer needs do you anticipate needing to identify over the next couple of years?
Makes perfect sense. Now I know, Brian, a lot of the early surveys that we've done together with folks, communication is a kind of a central part about what folks have wanted to know. Communication preferences, how folks like to be communicated with. Why do you think that's been such a hot topic when it comes to the surveys we've done together so far?
Well, yes, I mean, communication is, yes, obviously important. I mean, it's really the kind of the beginning of how this information, all the information can be used, and the end. So the majority of the questions are often around communication, because, of course, effective communication is really key to kind of building that trust and rapport with your customers. Um, Market research, of course, can help you identify your customers' preferred communication channels, how they want to receive information, how often they want to receive information. Do they really feel that they're, informed on all the important issues? So it's both kind of making sure that that you're getting the right message, the message is reaching your customers, and is it really kind of connecting and resonating? Any of the previous stuff that we've identified, perceptions, of course, would be brought back and tied back into communications. Sometimes it might just be more messaging around a particular topic, or it could be something maybe that you want to really go more in depth in a newsletter, for example. So an example of a question that we have is, an emergency, including outages, which social media channels would you monitor? Another example would, do members really feel that they're informed about the issues that are important to them? So kind of, another question to ask is, which communication channels are you currently using? Which ones do you think are most effective? And what communication issues have you encountered that you really want to kind of get feedback from your members about?
Yeah, that frequency and channel is important. I just went through one of those binges this morning where I was unsubscribing from all of the Cabela's and Eddie Bauer's and all. You sometimes you just get where your email inbox is full and you got to go back through and unsubscribe. So yeah, asking folks how often they want to be communicated with and how seems like a pretty good idea.
Yeah, enough. It's just, are they being reached? And I think it usually comes down to multiple channels, sending out the same message, many times, or at least through, different channels. So everybody gets a chance to hear or see what you're sharing. Okay.
Now,
And then
this is one. Yeah, this is, sorry to jump in. This is one.
Yeah.
The next piece is one I'm interested to hear more about. I know you like the open-ended questions, and I have a follow-up question probably for the end. But go ahead and tell us more about those open-ended questions.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of the open-ended questions. To be honest, it's like sometimes when we start the survey, I can sense a little hesitation on including an open-ended question because it's going to be people just writing whatever they think or feel, and you're going to get a lot of responses to look through. But it tends to be the most popular part of the survey. It's really what people love to dig through, and so we do include them. Of course, we like to get more detailed responses as a follow-up to certain questions. So you can get a little bit more insight because it really provides richer and more meaningful information if you get that in your customer's own words. But what we do, is what we analyze this, this qualitative data to uncover those insights and kind of get to the heart of what are the motivations and what people are really feeling and thinking. Because rating is one thing; it's good to the quantitative information. Somebody rates you a 7, but well, what does that really mean, right? So, an example of the question is just at the end. It's kind of really open-ended. What's one thing you would want to change about your co-op service? And people can really, share anything they want. And so, when you're thinking of an open-ended question or where to include it in the survey, think about, what would you want to ask? What do you really want to know more?
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up that I have, because I've seen a tendency for folks, and I know I've done it myself, you may get the the quantitative data that says, you're a 9 out of 10. But when you have the open-ended question that says, what would you change? And there's 1 or 2 negatives in there where somebody took the time to write words in there. And even if you may have thousands saying you're an A or A plus on the rating scale, just those couple of comments that are that may sting a little bit, those stick with you. How do you encourage folks to kind of wait that out or kind of balance those when?
Well, this is the part that we found that we can really add a lot of value because as I was reading through hundreds of responses to some of these open-ended questions, I had the same reaction. What happens is just like a social media feed or any post anywhere, you scan through all the information, and then the ones that are in all caps or the ones that are negative or have certain provocative words in them really jump out, and that can really distort the kind of looking at it objectively. So what we've done to help with that, because I kind of needed to do it for myself when analyzing the data, was just
Sure.
sort the hundreds of responses and then put them in groupings of sentiment, so that you have, people who are, one, it could be a topic, it could be a general feeling about the co-op. Those are grouped together and highlighted and even labeled. And then you get down to where people have usually very specific complaints, which can sometimes be, kind of unique to one individual. But I think if
Sure.
you put it in context, and you can see hundreds of positive responses and really just a few, you know, complaints or opinions, it puts it in perspective. And then in addition to that, I like to kind of take that and provide kind of more of a narrative, kind of a summary of sentiments, kind of a story, put it into a paragraph, all of it. And that can kind of help give some perspective too. So you're not just reading through hundreds of responses and you're picking out a few.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Right. All right, so now we get to the demographics. So one thing with demographics is again, there's a little bit of reluctance or even, sometimes people can really want to consider, do we really need demographics? And what we say is that you don't need all of them. I usually just a few select demographics are important because they can really provide you some additional insight based on some characteristics of your customers. And what the demographics can do is help you kind of tailor your communication strategies so that they resonate or connect better with specific customer segments. And so in thinking about that is, what demographics, which ones are the most valuable to use for comparison? And typically, the few that we do recommend are age, length of time as a customer, and then sometimes a location if that's relevant to your customer base. And again, coming back to the comparison, what do, say, a younger segment of your customers feel about an issue as compared to an older segment of your customers feel about an issue? What do short-term customers and new customers feel about your service versus, really long-term or people who've been with you for quite a while? And kind of looking at the difference there really can give you some meaningful insights. So
I
a
think
thing
that's
to consider there is, what distinctions would you make? Which characteristics are, do you consider important?
Yeah, and what's actionable. And I think that, you could, as you could certainly fill up a survey with all of the demographic questions, and but then what are you going to do with it? If
Yeah,
you get, just because you can and you can draw those lines, but if you're going to be a communicator, I think those 3 bullets that you have there are a key way to have some actionable groups to treat differently based on that. Makes
yeah,
sense.
exactly.
So you've talked about kind of gathering the information, and we've obviously got kind of a medical theme going on here with the anatomy presentation. So you're kind of like the doctor so far, getting the information for everybody and kind of talking about what it should look like. But then it's time for the prescription. So I guess that would be the survey. Once you've gathered the information that you can, um, Brian, when it comes time to the prescription, tell us about the survey itself.
Yeah, so I mean, really, it is building the survey based on your needs. So regardless of what provider you work with, here's a few things you could consider. So one thing is we usually draw from a survey library, and this is kind of covering much of what we just talked about. You want to have a set of common satisfaction questions. You want to have groupings of perceptions questions. Really, ones are looking at customer needs, communication, a lot of those. But also add to that, there's obviously some local questions that are very unique to your service, to your co-op, and then really consider and get some, guidance on where some open-ended questions could be added or where you want those added, to get a little bit more depth. And then, of course, as we just talked about, selecting the demographics that are most relevant for you. And one thing about kind of pulling from a base is if you have somewhat standardized or common questions, it gives you the ability to compare your co-op to other co-ops if the same questions were asked. And all of this, of course, provides relevant insights. You know, just a few examples are, perception about service disruptions, views on rate increases, any kind of new initiatives, new programs you're offering, kind of just the reception of those, and then make sure that you get any custom questions, any unique questions to you included in the survey, really focusing on the most areas. And those, a lot of times, it's just, there can be issues in front of management, there can be issues in front of the board. One of the things that we've appreciated learning is that the surveys were actionable, that people actually used the information, it was presented to the board, and you're member driven, you're a customer driven organization, and it's really important for those members to have a voice in those big decisions, and that can be a way of kind of quantifying that, so it's not just the opinions or views of neighbor or kind of what you've heard. So that's a some just general overview of just kind of where it is a place to start in building the survey.
Yeah, and like with a lot of projects, but maybe even more so when it comes to surveys, I think kind of beginning with the end in mind is always something that we try to do on different projects. But I feel like that's maybe even more important with surveys. So talk us through a little bit about the strategy, and then when you're looking at the results as well.
Yeah, so I mean, defining objectives very important. I mean, that's just consider usually people have a need, they have a specific reason they want to use the data, what they want to collect to verify. So just really thinking about the overall purpose of it, and then kind of working with your provider to really help you define that and make sure that it shows up into the research. The survey should be comprehensive to everything that you want. And that's kind of both, the guidance of the survey company is to really look at everything that you've said, and assuring you that does show up. Those questions do show up in the survey. In addition to that, a launch guide. It's really important to have a roadmap, because you need to kind of whoever you work with, they've done this hundreds of times. Maybe a utility, co-op, any service provider has done it a few. And they kind of really, again, depending on your objectives, you want to some guidance on getting through that really effectively and successfully. Another really important thing is promotion. You are promoting the survey to your customers, to your members, and I just really think it's important that every member has the opportunity to receive that message, really an opportunity to participate in the survey. So it's kind of obvious, but you can't just put something on social media and expect everybody to respond, or sending them a text and expect everybody to respond. But I personally, that's the only way that I receive invitations to participate in the survey is with a text. And so that's not necessarily going to reach everybody. So really promoting across all the channels as much as possible is really important. Again, so everybody has an equal opportunity to participate.
Yeah, because guess what? If you do a survey asking about social media or communications preferences, and you only promote it on social media or email or magazine or whatever, obviously that's going to skew the results pretty significantly. If you're only promoting it on one or two channels, you're only going to get the people that are already interacting with this.
Yeah, exactly. And so this getting to the results, again, it's just the results are really important to make sure that they're something that you can take action on. Do the results lead to potential change? And so different ways that the results can be presented to you. Some firms will just provide the quantitative results in a graphic display, with charts. That's really just the starting point. I think it's also really important to make sure you get all the survey questions in a spreadsheet. That you can see the cross-tabulated subsets and access to the complete open-ended responses. And as I was talking about, even a summary of that or organization of those open-ended responses are important. Another thing to ask for is the executive summary. Not everybody's going to kind of wade through all those research results. So the executive summary is really important to really highlight the critical information. What's the most insightful? What really provides the most understanding to really support you in any decision-making process. A lot of times, that's maybe what some people, the only thing that people read. So it is also important. And then finally, if needed, presentation slides, again, with recommendations can be really important, because often this information needs to be communicated to more people. Could be managers, could be board of directors. They want to see it in a really digestible way, but usually with some time constraints. So all those results, the more it's refined, I think it's the more actionable the information is. And just a personal note here, one of the things that we've really enjoyed working with utilities, with co-ops over the last year through Pioneer, is that compared to some of the research we've done over many decades, is that research occasionally would just sit on the shelf, and we provide the results, but nothing was really done with it. And so far, from what we've seen, is this information is really getting used. It really is leading to supporting the decision-making process. So that's really refreshing.
Yep, that's good to hear. Research doesn't do any good if it's on the, like I said, if it's on the shelf. Brian, where can people go to learn a little bit more as we're wrapping up here?
All right. Well, to wrap it up, some next steps is to really, in addition to just looking at any research provider, kind of getting some background on and then really just get a good sense of what they really offer and what that information looks like and how it's used. We'll direct you back to Pioneer. Pioneer's put together a few resources over the last several months. One is a podcast with John Marling from Pulse Research. These are just good questions to ask before you even start research. Ask yourself. It's a good interview, more conversational. There's also a blog post, about building a story strengthening survey. So just another way of kind of looking at how to approach these surveys. And the one I really kind of enjoyed reading was the case study. This is with Cordova, and it's how they use the research to deliver guidance for community investments. So just really looking at how that research was put to use. Of course, reach out to your Pioneer representative to get more information, some places to start. And of course, you can contact Pioneer or us with any questions that you may have.
Perfect. And I just put the link to a page in the chat that has links to the podcast, the blogs, and everything there for folks. So, Brian, thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you, Andy.
And I'm going to stop recording.